Hey, we're live. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. Welcome to the very informal Diana Initiative post-conference Bring Your Own Brunch conference recap. So we're just going to spend the next hour talking about each of our talks, maybe what inspired us, maybe talk about some of the feedback we got, maybe talk about things we forgot to mention in our talks. And I'd also just like to kind of go through the other events and villages and things like that, just to see if anybody had, any of the other keynote speakers, myself, had any other feedback. So I am Tracy Mayleaf. I'm also known as InfoSec Sherpa, and I was the opening keynote speaker on Friday. And I will hand it over to introduce who was second. Was that Jules? Was that you?
Yeah.
There you go, Jules. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Jules. I was the Friday closing keynote, and I think many of you may know me, but I am essentially a marketing saleswoman in a cyber world.
Nice. And let's throw it over to Yolanda, the girl who was the birthday girl on the day that she gave her talk. Take it away.
Hey everybody, I'm Yolanda Smith. I was the opening keynote speaker for day 2, which happened to also be my birthday. The topic that I went through was what it means to be a barrier breaker, kind of a riff off of the theme of this year. And as we get into the discussion, I'll say more words about why that was important to me.
Sure. And our queen in the tiara, who in baseball terms batted cleanup and closed the whole showdown, Kirsten.
Yes.
Hello, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten Brazier. I was the glutton for punishment, signing up to be the closing keynote speaker after all of these fantastic women. To say the pressure was on was an understatement. My talk was gatekeeping, gaslighting, and grieving, thriving despite the ugly phases of your security development lifecycle. And I'll go into more details about that as we get further into the show.
So cool. So the most important thing is, why don't we share what we're drinking? I bought a bottle of Blanc de Blanc. Oh, Blanc de Noir, pardon me. Blanc de Noir champagne. And I also have cherry juice. I don't know if that's a thing. I'm going to make it a thing. So, and let me pop it right here. Let's get this going. Mazel tov.
All right.
Jules, what are you drinking, hon?
So I'm drinking rosé, sparkling rosé.
Nice. Is there a brand you want to promote?
Goblet.
Oh yeah, look. Oh, I have my my fancy little crystal thing here. I got my wedding crystal out for this. So awesome. Is it a specific brand you're drinking?
I believe it's I'll have to find out. I don't remember.
You don't carry around the bottle around the house like I do?
I thought only one of us could do that this time. So
I'll just carry the bottle, yeah. So fun fact, when I used to host a lot of New Year's parties at my house, I would have like my own champagne stash and then like the stash for the party. And yeah, I was like, don't touch my champagne stash. Like, this is mine. I would like walk around with the bottle. Yolanda, dear, what are you drinking?
I am drinking what I call a cabinet clean out.
Nice.
It's an orange Kentucky Mule, made with orange juice, Kentucky bourbon, ginger beer, and love.
good time.
And you're super bougie in your copper mug there. So congratulations.
It is a mule, so I decided to.
This lady does not mess around with her mules.
And then in my other cup, I have coffee and Bailey's, so I'm going hard today.
Oh yes, double fisting.
I knew I liked you. All right, Kirsten, bring us home. What are you doing?
I'm drinking coffee and Bailey's as well. It is noon here. My sleep schedule for the last, 5-6 months has been just retarded. And so I've been getting up in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and my anxiety is just waking me up. And so Then I end up falling back to sleep when it's time for me to wake up. And so, weird schedule. I'm drinking coffee with Bailey's in it.
Gotcha. All right. So on the count of three, let's just do a cheers. We got through the keynotes.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Cheers to.
Cheers. Yes.
So I'll start a little bit first about. Why don't we just first start talk about our keynotes? I'm wondering if people might be interested in like the process and like what maybe like originated our ideas. So I was very grateful that the Diane Initiative reached out to me. My talk was Empathy as a Service to Create a Culture of Security. And I did give that talk, let me rephrase that. I did give a talk by that same title at DerbyCon almost a year ago. It'll be a year ago next month. But I never like to give the same talk twice. So I did make sure that I changed things up. The slides were completely different because I feel like me personally, I want to make sure that I give a new product out there. So the reason why I created is because when I first entered the information security industry, I was very surprised the lack of empathy about the making fun of users, calling users stupid, calling people in other departments stupid. All these people who needed to be consumers of security, I just noticed a lot of InfoSec people making enemies out of them. I'm like, well, no wonder they're clicking on stuff because, wasn't it Oprah who said something like people act the way you treat them? So it's like you're treating them like they're all stupid and ignorant, and then you wonder why they keep clicking on stuff. So like, no, you have to empower them and you have to use the power of empathy to do that. And I don't know how it came to me, but that 7-step process that I talked about in my talk is from library science. It's a real thing. It's called the reference interview. It just kind of came to me one day a couple of years ago, because like this talk has been through many iterations. And I don't know, I was just like, oh my goodness, these steps so easily could be transferred into information security. So I just kind of sat down and had to think about it and figured out how to make them apply to information security. And, and of course, like the week before the talk, I'm like, what did I get myself into? You're all excited when you get invited, right, ladies?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh God, I've made a terrible mistake. What have I done?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I got lots of great feedback and I was really happy. And some of the feedback really just blew me away. I had people say that, they made their whole department sit down and watch the talk. Just really amazing things. And yeah, it just made me feel really good because, I know empathy can be hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Empathy can be hard. I mean, if somebody is working your nerves, it is very hard. But it's a lot better than, disenfranchising our users and our fellow professionals.
Yeah.
So, I'm not perfect. I know, I'm not saying that I'm Mary Poppins all the time, but I'm very mindful that we have consumers of security and we need to treat them like customers.
Yeah.
So that was my motivation for that. And I got through it. I had one little snafu with one of my slides because I thought I was being genius by having a hyperlink to that Washington Post article on my slide. And then when I went to go advance it, I kept clicking on the article. So I had all these tabs open of the Washington Post article on my end. I'm like, what is happening? So otherwise, I got through it without a heart attack and without completely crashing anything. So Jules, what was the inspiration for your talk?
I'll admit, for the last several months, I've had a block where I couldn't express all the swirling feelings that I was having about all the things going on and intersecting at the same time. So to me, what was the final straw was really watching the silence in cybersecurity among people who claim to be diversity activists and all sorts of things. And, a few days before this, I was tempted because I'd seen this image of blackface as a joke in one of my threads. And I just got to the point where I was like, no, and here's what inspired it. Legitimately, it was a white male, posted the picture. I demanded that he take it down, and he was called the good human.
Oh, okay.
They
Hmm.
called him a good human for having taken the blackface post that he had put up down. And so I had a choice because I hadn't really fully, like, kind of outlined what I was going to say. I was like, you're angry, but you've got to transition that into something that motivates people, because it's easy to be angry. It is very difficult to then harness that and turn it into good that does good for others.
Yeah.
And so I cried, like, I mean, I would say the day before I was crying, and I stayed away from practicing because I wasn't sure what would come out, because I was so angry. The same day that that happened, I'd been in a meeting where there was a white man who decided that literally racism should not be defined as a harm. That's not, and I'm sitting the only black woman in this meeting, and it was like, are we sure that's a harm? Should we include that? And it was so much welling in me that by the time I got to practice, I was told I had 30 minutes. 55 minutes of just needing to convince myself that I needed to move beyond this is what came out. And I tell people, it felt like therapy because that was all sitting in there. And I just wanted people to know that despite all things, we have to rise. We have to go beyond what it is that we're feeling on a daily basis, because it would benefit everybody if I just step back. But I have a legacy. I have people behind me who need me to continue to progress. So my talk was about, you can't be quiet in the face of injustice. You have to say something. And we all have this huge tent. We've got to make room. So as women, when we get in, we've got to expand. We've got to expand the tent so that we can let other women in, so we can let minorities in, those with disabilities in, people not like us. And so I was I was moved to speak because a lot of times I'm actually an empath. I'm somebody who feels people's emotions anyway. And I felt like this was a time for people to feel like they wanted to be motivated and they needed someone to tell them it was okay.
Mhm.
So that was my.
Excellent, excellent. Yolanda, do you want to talk to us about your motivations for your topic and any other feelings you had?
Sure. So again, my topic was what does it mean to be a barrier breaker? And in InfoSec in particular, we put up all kinds of these artificial, stupid, ridiculous barriers to keep people from getting to some, to some next place that's meaningless, right? The barriers that and the goalpost moving and the gates we put up and you've got to have a CISSP, but you've been in the industry for 2 years, right? We put up all these artificial barriers, and I've been in and around this space my entire working career. And for me, this whole concept of the infosec rock star, we say it with our mouths that it's dumb, but it hasn't gone away, right? You have to show up with 8 certifications. You have to show up with 2 CVEs. You have to have, been on the main stage at DEF CON in order for anyone to take you seriously. And God forbid you show up and be Black and a woman, because then that gate, those goalposts, that wall gets so much higher. And I wanted to spend some time focusing on those people who are moving this industry forward, who are no kidding, working behind the scenes for equality that they won't even be the recipients of. That in one of the examples that I gave was about the women's suffrage movement. This is the 100th year of the 19th Amendment being ratified, and what a lot of people talk about, and there have been stories that have come out recently about this, what a lot of people talk about is the fact that, oh yeah, this is 100th year of women being able to vote. But for 50 extra years, Black people in this country had to go through all kinds of extra just to be able to enjoy that freedom. And you see, even today, it's still under assault. It's still under assault. And so when we celebrate, oh, we broke this barrier, it's not broken for everybody. And it will only be a broken barrier when everybody can enjoy the same freedom without being put under assault. And I wanted to spend some time focusing on those types of things and what it means to be a barrier breaker. So I had four key premises. One of them was barriers are in the eye of the beholder. One of them was the fact that shoot, I should just do my top. No, I'm just kidding. One of them was in the fact that shoot, I lost my premises. I'll have to get back to you on that. But ultimately, what I wanted to do was spend some time just really dispelling and breaking down the myth of this whole infosec rockstar thing, and the fact that, frankly, we keep talking, and it just bubbled up this past week, right? We keep talking about this whole thing of this cybersecurity skills gap shortage, and then in the exact same breath we say out loud, oh, but you have to have X to get in. And it's like, well, either you want the skills gap to be resolved or you don't. If you want it to be resolved, then train, hire, promote, and elevate people, and make sure you're bringing new voices to the table. Because the thing that I think all of us on this call recognize, and certainly some of the folks on the other who aren't the host recognize as well, is that security, of course, becomes an exercise of breaking down assumption. And it's about breaking down the built-in biases of whoever made the technology or whatever it is that you're trying to secure. And right now, vast majority of technology and the vast majority of people who have that power to get products fielded is in the hands of a select few number of people. And the fact is that when you bring other people to the table, you are able to start to pick apart those biases and start to pick apart those assumptions and those user groups in a different way than you hadn't before. And it makes you more secure. And I want us to stop putting these stupid artificial gates. I've never had a CVE my whole life, not a one. I've got certs, haven't renewed them. And it's because I've been lucky enough to have a network and to have a set of mentors that have pulled me along and have made that an okay thing. And I can't say that for everybody, and I really, really wish that we could. But yeah, don't get me on. I'm listening.
I know it's Sunday, but Yolanda's taking us to church right now.
Yes.
I kept wanting to shout amen, but I didn't want to interrupt you. But I'm just gonna hurt my neck nodding, and I know. Yeah, I'm gonna start getting happy here. I mean, yeah, no, you brought it, girl. Wow. Did you feel any extra pressure presenting on your birthday?
No, I felt no pressure presenting.
It was either going to be good or it was going to be good. Like, yeah, no pressure. Like,
either way, at the end of it, I was going to have a drink, and that's exactly what I did.
Good for you. All right, Ms. Kirsten, what were your thoughts? I know you've given that talk other times, right? Or like versions of it, right?
The career planning piece of it is in other talks, but the rest of it, no. Mm-hmm. So the inspiration for this talk was, let me bring those things that we're talking about in my DMs and on one-on-one calls with women when I'm talking them off the ledge. And those things that we see, there's chatter of it on social media, and there's, people who are new who pop up from time to time saying, well, I wish somebody would have told me, and we need to talk about this more. And so that's what I wanted to bring to the stage. And then also just more transparency around money and asking for money, because we skirt around it. We talk about it, but no one is really confronting it head on. And so I wanted it to be part, I hear you, I acknowledge you, your feelings are valid. These challenges that you're experiencing, these things where you feel like you're being gaslighted, those things are absolutely true. And then here's how you deal with that. Because we all experience it in some form or another. Black women coming into this industry, or maybe their early career early in their career, they see these things, and I went through it myself. So for me, I speak from experience and say, I saw these things, but I didn't know what they were. And so rather than going and crying in the corner, which I still do that, but rather than feeling helpless, here is how, let me empower you. This is what I saw along the way. And you don't have to feel like you are losing your mind. You are not losing your mind. They really are lying to you. They really are bullshitting you. They really are leading you along. And here's how you get around that. Here is how, if someone is leading you on and you know that you're worth more, or you've been there for an extended period of time and you're watching mediocre Matt get promoted and you're having to train mediocre Matt to go in a position above you, you are being gaslighted. Here's how you create your exit plan, right? And here's how you give yourself permission to do that, because that's where it starts. It starts with, I'm going to acknowledge this problem and I'm going to make a decision that I deserve better. I deserve more. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. And then also, so now you've made your decision that you deserve more. Well, how much more do you deserve? Well, here's some numbers. Here's some hard facts. Here is publicly available information. No, it won't show up on your first Google search, but if you go digging, here are the numbers. And here is what people that I've seen. There's a guy popped up on Twitter a couple weeks ago where he had negotiated a $200,000 sign-on bonus. And no, that is not, I haven't heard anybody in information security that can command that kind of sign-on bonus, but it certainly shows you the possibilities that are out there, right? And so what I wanted to do again is to, here is these things, you're going to face these things. Yes, it's all messed up, but here's how you get around that. And here's how we are taught you have to stay somewhere long term, and you just, you have to just you have to work harder. Yolanda mentioned the bar keeps moving, and you keep doing all these different things, and it never works. It's not supposed to work. It's time for you to go somewhere else. And so helping women to come to that realization, to be armed with facts, and to also, not necessarily do like I did. I rage quit my job earlier this summer. I wouldn't advise other people to do that. I would encourage people to, if you're able to make a plan to get out. But it's still, again, I felt like, those things, it starts with acknowledging that this is the problem and making a decision to make a move.
Excellent. Excellent.
I would love for this to be a conversation, because there's so many things that, like Yolanda said and Kirsten said, I need to respond to in real time. Like I need to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. Let me start there, because I think that the four of us are here because we could see through the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, as a society, we're training women not to, or to feel it and question themselves. That's the trick. The trick is, you can feel it, it feels weird, but you don't feel like you can say anything. You just sit in your place and hope that someone finally sees you enough to regard you enough to give you the opportunity. It's about demanding the opportunity. And the reason why it's about demanding it, and when I say demand, I don't mean aggressively. There are very strategic ways to demand you be treated a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'll say is, I was in a relationship at the same time I was in a situation at work where I was being gaslit. I was being gaslit on two fronts, both at home and at work. I left my relationship where I was married because it was happening. I got a divorce and left. That's when I realized that my organization was gaslighting me too, because then I started to see the same signs. I was like, okay, so I'm going to go out for a deal. I'm going to bring it back. Then you're going to tell me all the things you're going to take out of it so I don't make the money. I'm going to go and get opportunities for us. People are going to recognize me. Then you're going to tell me that I'm more concerned with myself than the company, and that I think the company is mine. Legitimately, it was designed to put me back in my place. That is the definition of abuse. It is abusive. We've got to call it what it is. We've got to be real about the fact that, like, a lot of the ways we're being treated in these organizations is abusive. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it causes harm. Because when you leave there, just like in a personal relationship, you take it to the next place.
Yeah.
It doesn't just go away because you left the environment. So for me, and like with Kirsten and Yolanda, you want to always be armed with facts. And let me tell you, you have to understand, don't ask somebody who wants to devalue you, what you should be worth to an organization. always be willing to go in and ask for way more than you think you're worth, because you probably are worth that.
Yep.
Right? So my first job, I went in and I was a year and a half into the industry. I was told I would never make more than $100,000. I made 4 times that in a year, because I basically had to calculate, I needed a nanny. I had to, I had student loans. I had to put all my costs in perspective. And then I was like, what would they pay a white male who had this much experience? Because legitimately, I had started an entire stock at a bank in Africa. I'd flown myself to Africa to build a stock. So it didn't matter that I had a year's experience. What had I done with my year?
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. Like, I just, like, I want us to have that back and forth about, like, can we be real with women about not listening to what you're being told?
Mm-hmm.
And really saying to yourself, let me find somebody who can help me figure out what I should be asking for. It does ignore the noise and really figure out, how do I get in touch with, what do I deserve? What do I deserve? Not what is it even that I think I'm worth, because we underestimate ourselves too much. But I think men never have to sit with that. We sit with it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is about what you are worth, considering your peer white male. So what would a white man be worth? That you're worth more than that even. So try for that. And if they put you back, you're in the wrong space. That's that.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually I can, same with Jules, I feel like I'm bursting of all the stuff I want to reply to what they said, what you all said. Just a couple points. So one, everyone knows by now, I think, that I came from library world. So I am not a career tech or infosec person. But I did quit my library job because I was getting, now this is a whole other rabbit hole to go down. But even though I did have a female boss, I did have lots of prejudices laid on me for things, or things unfairly, things that like, I know she wasn't treating a male coworker that way. So there was a whole lot of toxicity coming up. So yeah, I up and quit. I discussed with my husband, we had this exit plan, and yeah, I up and quit my job at the library law firm. I had an office, I had floor to ceiling windows. I could have just stayed there, but I wasn't content with that because it was a toxic environment, and I knew there was no way I could progress any further. I even had my boss say to me in a one-on-one one time, she said, well, sometimes the way to move up is to move out. And I said, are you asking me to resign? And then she like backpedaled, realizing what she said. So yeah. Yeah, I was just like, all right. So I up and quit my job in January 2016. A couple weeks later, I was on a plane to San Francisco in February 2016 to go to RSA, because I had then created my Sherpa intelligence company, and a company hired me to go on site to RSA to do, social media for them and things like that. So my business was then off and running because I made plans for that. The other thing I was going to say is, so I made that was my first escape in one way. And yeah, it took some planning, but I created that business as a bridge to get into information security. And it took me a year and a half, but I did it. I knew that was the end goal. I knew that this was a temporary thing as an independent consultant because I wanted to get into InfoSec. So a year and a half of working my butt off and doing all kinds of freelance jobs because, yeah, I couldn't handle that toxic atmosphere. And even my boss being a white woman still created a toxic atmosphere, because one of the other dirty secrets that isn't said is that women aren't necessarily nice to each other behind closed doors. There's this whole women helping women thing. Yes, that does happen, but it's also the opposite in some circles. And you have to be very keenly attuned to which woman's going to be your friend and which one's going to be your enemy. And that might be shocking for some people to hear, but from the nods, I can tell you agree with me. The other escape that I just want to mention too is when I made it into InfoSec, the second year into my SOC job, it became very toxic. There was a change in management. I cannot stress this enough, ladies. Document, document, document. I documented everything. I mean, what good was it working for a law firm for 10 years if I didn't learn the value of documentation?
Yeah.
Uh, so when I did escalate concerns, very toxic, things were being said to me that was awful. I documented everything. My hands may have been shaking as I was typing it up, but I was writing these notes to myself. So long story short, when things really started to get more worse, and then I got notification that I was being laid off and things like that, I escalated the issues and I said this magic phrase of, were these issues never rectified because everyone knew that I was, not just me, but that they knew that there were layoffs coming. And all of a sudden like I threw that card down. I was like, I want to know why my concerns were never addressed. Was it because you all have known for months that there was a massive layoff coming? And then I supplied pages and pages of documentation of like, this is what, I can't get into too many details, but I supplied pages and pages of documentation. And in the end, I was able to get my own way, I'll just say, to sever that relationship. Uh, but without documentation, I would have been stuck. So I cannot stress enough to anyone in a bad situation, documentation is key. And it was that courage of speaking up. I mean, yeah, I was scared to speak up. We all are. But I don't know, you just kind of reach deep down and kind of like, I apologize if I got the person wrong, I believe it was Jules said about, you think about the people after you. You think about the sacrifices of the people before you.
Yep.
My mother originally worked in a meat packing plant before she was able to get an office job, and used to come home. I don't remember this, but I heard stories of her coming home with her hands all cut up. So it's like, this is for the women before me and the women behind me. I'm going to dig down. And even though it's uncomfortable, I'm going to raise these issues and stand up for myself. And now I'm like so happy. I'm in a great situation. And I know it's tough, but you find the inner strength and you are able to do it.
So I want to touch on a couple of things. I love all of that, and I love that you told the story of using a business as a way to get into security.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fantastic idea, especially for those of you, if you have like any kind of specialized skill set that you can use to get in, then you don't have to necessarily wait for a job. I know I was talking to Rachel Toback a few weeks ago, where she essentially did the same thing. That's her company, Social Engineering. That was her way to get into the industry. And once you're in, you can chart your own path, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other side, the other thing I wanted to touch on was you mentioned documentation. That is, I cannot express enough my support for that. I actually,
Mm-hmm.
that's on my SDLC Phase 5 maintenance to update
Yeah.
documentation. I was talking about it in reference to a career plan, but it still is just as important when you're dealing with things at work for you to create that documentation, on top of you being able to use that in the event if there is a legal issue or something. That documentation will also help you to remind you why you're leaving, right? If you think that you feel like, well, maybe this is happening, no, it's just me, I'm overreacting, all these things that make us doubt ourselves, when you see it in black and white, then that for you, that is your proof that it is time for you to go. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was having these conversations with recruiters. I know a lot of us hate I'll say the interaction that we have with recruiters right now, because a lot of them are just, it's like they're not reading our profiles, or maybe they're new to the industry and they just I don't know what's going on with recruiters right now, but if you can find recruiters that specialize in this industry and you develop their relationship with them, then those recruiters can also help you to keep a pulse on what you should be getting paid. And so in the event you're in a situation where, if you've been on a job, I'll say, I've put this in my presentation too, that we should be looking at our career in 2 to 4 year chapters. If you are somewhere in that area and you have not gotten a significant raise, I'm not talking about 2%, because that's not a raise. If you have not gotten a significant raise in the last 2 to 4 years, then you should be talking to recruiters to see where you fit. I know I talk to a lot of women who are feeling stuck right now. And a lot of times we don't realize, and I had the same thing over the summer where I'm working really hard, but I'm feeling stuck and I'm feeling unmotivated. And some of it is due to the pandemic, but some of it is also due to you are not aligned with your purpose and you are not aligned with where you're supposed to be at that moment. And so pay attention to, that internal guide. We call it a woman's intuition. Make sure you're paying attention to that and use your documentation to help you to guide your decisions.
And I just want to interject real quick about the documentation in case anyone's not aware of this. Again, coming from a legal law firm background, you want to make sure it has a timestamp. Now, back in the day, this meant literally mailing yourself an envelope and not opening it, so that you could have the postal seal, the stamp on it, so that you would type up your documentation about poor treatment, and you'd put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. You'd mail it to yourself. And maybe I'm dating myself, but this is, so you would have, and then you wouldn't open it. So you would have like a stack of unopened envelopes sent to you. And that was your documentation with the proof of when you sent it. But nowadays, you do this in an email, like you can do it to yourself. The timestamp is important, because otherwise, if you just show them a Word document, like, I know it seems I know it seems like a flimsy thing of like, well, you could have written that anywhere, but having that timestamp really helps, of like, especially with like frequency, because I was able to give them pages and pages of all this time-stamped emails of like, this is when these things happened. So I just want to interject that, is that having a timestamp is important. So even if it means setting up a special Gmail account, if, God forbid, you have such a bad experience that you need to have like a special Gmail account for your grievance documentation. I talk about this when I do my OSINT talks. You want to make sure that things could hold up in court. God forbid it goes to that. And having a reputable timestamp like a Gmail is definitely going to help hold up, for an argument.
One of the things that I have to say I really loved about your talk, Kirsten, was that you called out that, as part of your recon, you will reach out to the people inside the company and say, hey, what's the correct pay band? Because one of the things that I've experienced with recruiters is that they'll dial it down by 10 to 15%, sometimes more than that. So the top of the pay band may be 170, but they're going to tell you it's 115. So getting somebody who's either left the job or was there before that can give you the inside baseball is crucial. The other thing that I have to do is I have to give a shout out to Kirsten, because it's so important to not just have that network inside your company, but to establish your key folks outside the company that you can go to when you want to get that gut check. I just changed jobs about a year ago, and I reached out to Kirsten Brager on Twitter, and I said, I'm about to change jobs. What should I be asking for? And she said, ask for everything. And I'll be the first to admit, I came in about $100,000 over what I was prepared to ask for. So that came from having somebody that I saw, that I knew wasn't going to bullshit me, and that I knew was gonna have my back and say, it's my skin in the game. It's my 80 hours plus a week. Paid. So I have to give a shout out for that. So thank you.
Well, and so here's the thing, right? So, and I want for anyone listening to this, especially for those of you that have advanced degrees and certification and experience, you can and should command everything. Ask for everything. And I talk about in my talk going through every little detail of what benefits are available to you. A lot of times we don't even know that those benefits are available to us. We don't even know that we can ask for a sign-on bonus. We don't know that we can ask for stock. We don't know that we can ask for equity. We don't know that we can ask for time off for volunteer work, for flexible schedules. We don't know that the salary band that you mentioned, if you don't even know what the salary band is, you don't even have a starting point. And I've also witnessed myself where there is a salary band published and they can pay you above that salary band if they really want you.
Yes,
so
they can.
to the point, asking for it. Jules also mentioned, someone telling her she would never get 100,000 and she's gotten 4 times that. Men are asking for this money and they expect it. They have this expectation that they are worth this. A lot of them, I sat on teams. Nobody has a degree. Nobody has a certification. All they have is their skin. And they're getting paid all the money and all the benefits and all the bonuses. And they're getting all of the growth assignments. And they're getting all the assignments that give them increased visibility in the company. They're getting the one-on-one meetings that we didn't even know that we should ask for, or we were never even getting. All those things we have to ask and be armed with information so that we know and we can go in and speak with confidence as well.
And it's
I'm sorry. Can I just interject real quick? I'm looking at the chats, the comments. A lot of people are kind of going back and forth about what kind of documentation to do. Somebody said to use, Ahmed said to use Proton Mail. The bottom line is just something that email at this point in time is probably best because it'll have all the date stamps in it. Yeah, whether it's Gmail or Proton Mail or whatever, the bottom line is you want something that has a date and time stamp that's not something that can be, easily altered. That again, like think of it as what would hold up in court. So whatever's easiest for you, but keep in mind that just having a Word doc open that you periodically add to isn't going to be as strong as, a whole list of emails with, certifiable dates and times. Sorry, ladies, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm looking at the comments and there was a lot of going back and forth.
So there are two things. So I'm an attorney and also had to negotiate my exit from one of the companies that became toxic. And legitimately, I didn't have, sort of a list where I was mailing myself things, but I communicated so frequently about what was happening that by the time I left, they were nervous and what I was doing was blind copying my personal email.
Mm-hmm.
I sent the email. So always I'd be like, let me send this over and blind copy myself.
There you go, blind copy. That's probably best because now you have that record showing that to them. Yeah,
exactly. However you do it, email these days seems to be the easiest way to do that. I just didn't want to give people the impression that they could just like create like a diary or of like a Word document and just have it floating out there. But something that you can prove was sent when it was, because I know that's what saved me, because I was able. Because also there were other things going on that I was able to show, like, hey, I reported to you that morning that this happened, and then this was the aftermath of in retaliation that I got. Because that actually happened one day. Something happened in the morning. I had retaliation by the afternoon, so I was able to piece those two together. Yep. Here's my work correspondence, and then here's the retaliation. And then I was able to do that. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt her. Cool.
But one of the things to note, so Travel Sister, I think in the comments is a woman after my own heart, because so I don't spend a lot of time feeling bad for myself. I spend a lot of time leveraging a bad situation into a positive thing for me. So one of the things she said is male cyber friends have told her to leave when everything is good. I think a lot of women wait until they have to leave.
Yes.
And my mindset always, because I'm always about negotiating, is to leave when I have the best chances of leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what you can tell about men in the industry is when they start to blog and post and share all kinds of articles online, they're about to jump ship and they're looking for somebody to come see them as a value.
You're killing me with these truth bombs.
we need to notice it, because the thing about it is I don't watch what people say, I watch their actions. And I'm always like, oh, he's bombing us with info, so he's about to head out. Okay. And then you'll notice that they're somewhere else. Like maybe give it a month or two, they're heading out because someone's offered them something because they think they're a thought leader.
Yeah.
We need to always be keeping ourselves as thought leaders, and we need to always be communicating, whether it makes us feel good. Because a lot of times, and I'll tell you this, I can be uncomfortable with how much I post. I'm like, am I bragging? But then I'm like, well, who are you not to brag? Because everybody else is bragging.
They be loud and wrong.
Yes, exactly. And I actually have some things other people want to hear versus the people who are posting just things that make them feel good. So I feel like as women, there is two elements of the industry, so you are clear. There is the perception and there is the real. We always focus on the real, and then we want to be valued on the real. But organizations care about perception. Reputation matters. They value you on based on how the market values you. So you need to increase your value in the market, and then you also increase your value in what you're really doing. But what you're really doing will never get you where you want to be. You have to also be somebody who is respected by people outside of the people who you want to hire you. So we got to keep that real, right? And that's what I'm saying is like I have two marketing degrees. I have a law degree. I've been in sales for 20 years. Cybersecurity, because one of the questions I did a podcast with Ann Johnson that she and I talked about is it is not just about how great a worker you are. Do not be fooled. It is about whether you come off like a leader, and the judgment of being a leader is subjective and has nothing to do with how women lead, has everything to do with the way men lead. So how do you frame yourself in a way that makes people respect you from the gate? Because then when you come in to negotiate, we're not having back and forth. I don't do back and forth, by the way. Like I will go into a new job and say, this is what I'm worth. And if they come back and say, you're not worth that, then I say, I'm so sorry, I cannot help you. Because you know what? When I get into a job, I'm all the way in. I'm killing myself to make this job successful. So I'm not going to negotiate back and forth with you. But the other thing is, we as women need to have the conversation, maybe not here, about the women who are taking us down as well. There are women who are rising, who are lifting us up, and there are women who are taking us down. I've been in situations where there are women who internalize negative opinions about themselves, and then they transfer them onto you and want you to accept them. I can't accept it, sweetie. And so sometimes I go into jobs scared to work for a woman because I'm like, okay, so, I need to understand. Do you think it's me or you? Do you feel, competitive and jealous because I'm smart? Do you feel like I need to lower myself so you can be the head? There's a lot of women that I've spoken to privately who are telling me like, not every woman is looking to lift you up. And experience, and most of my experiences and my opportunities have come from white men. So I have nothing against a white man, nothing. What I'm saying though is there are rules of the rules of this game. We have to learn that we may not know. We've got to just learn how to play the game. And it's a game. It's not, and they don't even take it seriously. So let's not take it seriously. Go into it and ask for the money. And when they tell you, okay, well, you're not worth $300,000, you laugh and go, okay, so $299. And then they'll be like, okay, she's really not playing. It's a game. Let's not get emotional about it. Let's just play the game. That's it.
Exactly.
I want to chime in. So that was beautiful, by the way, and I was over here like taking notes. One last rewind of the tape on the documentation piece. I'm a hiring manager. It's my job to bring in highly qualified candidates to make sure that they can help me defend our systems and our networks. What they won't tell you, for those of you that are in the hiring manager position, we document too. HR tells us all day, every day, document everything. So if the business is documenting, you should be documenting too. Write it down, because for every time someone has a talk with you, somebody wrote that down. And if those two perceptions don't match up, it's going to be the business that gets to call that play. So document for your own protection, because HR is not here for you. We'll get from one hiring manager to the other.
The other thing I wanted to talk about that's related to all this, and this is something that I've been in the process of trying to create more talks about, is the importance of human networking, not networking with computers, but networking with humans. And one of the things, so, I am very much a proud and strong and loud ally for our Black, brown, LGBTQ, InfoSec family. What bothers me a lot is that our, friends, I'm just going to say collectively friends of color here. I hope that's not triggering to anyone. Please holler at me if that's not a good term to use. That they don't necessarily have the same access to circles as white people do. And I find that very bothersome, because this is where all this other stuff comes in, of getting, feedback about jobs, because there's a lot of whisper conversations going on. Somebody might be leaving a job because it's a toxic atmosphere, but you would never know that. So an important question to ask on a job interview is, why is this job available? Was it newly created? Is someone leaving? And that's when you get your back channels working of, why is so-and-so leaving this job? And what bothers me, though, is that, like our friends of color don't necessarily have the same access. So, and I'm not sharing this because I praise, I'm just sharing this as an example. So please don't take this as like a thing that I'm trying to boost myself up. I'm just sharing this as just straight hard facts of what white people as allies need to do. Is I connected a young Black woman who was a recent graduate with a higher level white man. I'm just going to lay all this out, all the facts out, who was a really upper level at a very well-known company, that I know that she would have never been able to make that connection to have a one-on-one with him if it weren't for me. And again, I'm not making this about me. I'm just using the example of, white people need to do better at creating these networks for our friends of color. And because to me, that's the big thing, is that I feel like a lot of people of color are stalled because they're not getting access to the same information that I am. I know that somebody had a tweet out not too long ago about, how did you get your job? Was it through networking? And I saw a lot of people of color reply like, no, I don't know anybody. I didn't get there.
Yep.
And that's so unfair. And I want the field to be level. And so I'm doing all that I can to help with that, but I need more people to do that. And I don't want the burden to be on the people of color you definitely should speak up, but there's a difference. I don't want the burden to be on you, because you already have a big burden on you. So I want the burden to be on the white people, to be like, let me reach out. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. Do you know this person? So I'm doing the best that I can, but I'm only one person. So I'm really trying my best to get that out there, because I hate when people be like, well, the people of color should network more. I'm like, bitch, they can, how if you don't let them into the circle, how are they going to get in? So like, it frustrates me to no end, and I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm always grateful to get insight and more and more advice on how to do that. But that's what just irritates me to no end. And I have had half a glass of champagne right now, so I am just dropping. You might want to cut me off pretty soon, but I get so worked up about this. I'm like, the burden is not on the people of color, because they're already suppressed and oppressed. Like, we need to, create those openings for them. And I feel strongly about that. Sorry. And this might be by the way, cherry juice and champagne is very good, by the way.
Can I provide the flip side to that particular coin?
Please.
So we have our faces, as Black women of color. We have our faces. I will tell you that I need more allies to work to make themselves uncomfortable. We have to go into every meeting completely by ourselves, defenses up, armor on, uncomfortable. I need more allies and accomplices to work to make themselves uncomfortable. I do not want to be the person that shows up at your diversity meeting or whatever, to represent the company's, commitment to diversity. Show up at the NSBE meetings and say, hey, we care about this. Show up at Afrotech, show up at Blacks in Tech. You have to show up if it really matters. And of course, don't intrude, but make it known that you want to be part of the solution, and figure out the right ways to make yourself uncomfortable and be a part of those communities when it's time to step up. But for sure, I love the idea of making connections, but we also need accomplices to show up and make themselves uncomfortable. because this isn't one of those things where we can just be like, hey, or we care, we're awesome, we're amazing, and we're gonna lift you up. You got to seek it out too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And personally, I'm a member of the Black and Latinx in Tech employee group at my company. I'm also an ally member of the it's called Black at my employer name group. Yeah, I joined those groups as an ally member for that same reason, Yolanda, because I want to be involved in these conversations. And I don't. Now, personally, I don't care if I'm the only white person in the room. Honestly, I kind of prefer it, to be honest.
You're the white person in this room.
Right.
I've never attended a conference, and that's why I give kudos to the Diana Initiative, where there were more Black females. There were more Black women as keynotes than white women. It's never happened. So this is itself progress.
And I wanted to spend more time with you all, remember? Because this was my idea to come, because I wanted to spend more time with you all because, because I don't feel uncomfortable. But to your point, Yolanda, I'm putting myself out there. And again, but I feel like I'm not trying to ever make this about myself, because all I want to do is just progress equality. But just, we need to do this better, and the networking needs to get better. And the burden is not on you to do that, because you're already, at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to touch on some things. One, I want to give credit to Camille Stewart, who had shared the mic in Cyber Campaign about a month or so ago. The people, there was a lot of good that came out of that. But I will also say that everyone didn't feel like all of the allies were there for the right reasons. It's like some of them participated to get their diversity cookie points for the day, and then there was nothing after that, right? And so I know I personally benefited from that event. I know Yolanda got a board role out of it. That is a perfect example of us not having access to those networks, but then when you amplify us, then those opportunities they come to us where they otherwise would not. And so I just wanted to touch on that. And then also, I think it's a nuanced conversation, because we also have to make sure that, and Jules, we touched on this before, we also have to make effort too. I don't want to make it seem, because then the next thing will be, they're just looking for handouts. No, I'm not looking for a handout. I just want access, right? And then I can do the rest. And then Jules also mentioned, one of the reasons she feels so confident with asking for so much, one, because she deserves it, and two, she knows that she is going to work her ass off. Well, all of us are, right? And that's the thing about women, as far as I know, every woman that I know, because we work so hard to get here and we have to constantly prove ourselves over and over and over, we are going to go that extra mile. So you also, you're going to go the extra mile going in. So be comfortable asking for the money to cover that extra mile.
And helping people of color doesn't take any money out of my pocketbook. So so let me hold the door for you, so that people of color can come in, because it doesn't affect my net income. So we work better together. So let's all come in. Yeah, I want more people to understand that.
And Tracy, I want you to understand, you don't have to apologize for anything. We don't think this is about you. We appreciate you continuing the conversation. Yeah. What I will say, though, is there is a net benefit to the industry and to the market in diversity for everybody. Right? So the fact that we're bringing it to the table, and that I don't even care if it benefited you. Just know that it benefits you and me at the same time. It doesn't have to take away from that. I think I'm very, very comfortable with dollars and cents.
Yes.
Diversity is a revenue, generator. But real diversity, not in words only, in action.
Mm-hmm.
You actually are then diversity, inclusion, and then you make it equitable. You see the net benefit. So I'm all about that. One. Secondly, I want people to understand where we sit today. If you're a woman, you're a man of color, you are trans, you have a disability. This is the time. See, I've never been somebody who said, oh my God, that's affirmative action, I'm not going to accept it. I've been someone who's going to say, oh, that looks like affirmative action, pay me double. You have to be comfortable with what. So people don't get married for the same reason, and people don't hire you for the reason you think. People might hire me because I'm Black, but they also know that I'm going to increase their revenue, and then they demand that of me. So don't feel shy about the fact that you cost money, because it's business. All of this is business. Cybersecurity is a business. It is not, just a mission and we feel good and we love each other. I'm always trying, and I talk to my friends. When you go into a room, people are making risk decisions. They're deciding how risky a decision you are to the organization to bring you in.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, it is about, how do I mitigate my risk to this organization? So I tell people, you can be your authentic self once you get in, but you cannot make change from the outside.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is respond and mirror the person you're talking to. Be very, very, like for women, we need to be commanding. We need to control the room. We need to be prepared. We need to anticipate. And literally, what you'll find is they won't have any way to measure you. They'll go, oh my God, okay, she's a woman. And they might have come in with all kinds of presumptions about you, but when you disrupt them, they don't have any way to really disregard you.
Yep.
So I'm very clear on, when people interview, they're making risk decisions. So don't go in as yourself if your self doesn't align with these stereotypes. And all I care about is getting more of us in. Women, minorities, anybody who disrupts the status quo. And when you sit in an interview, know what they're looking for and mirror it, get into the organization, and then be your true self. We have to be prepared and know that we don't have the power at the table, but you can't have more power at the table if you never get to the table. So we got to get to the table.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the only reason why I'm apologetic is because I do not, the last thing I want to come across is that whole white savior trope. I don't want anyone to think that I'm superficial, because we know there are definitely some superficial people in our community. So sorry, I appreciate your words, and I will try to not be so apologetic. But that's my motivation, is that I just don't want people to think that I'm superficial, that this is really deep in my soul, what I care about. And I see too many people in the InfoSec community who are superficial about it, and I do not want to be thought as one of them. So that's, but I take your words to heart. Thank you.
I wanted to touch on some of the comments further up. I meant to do it earlier, but I got distracted with Jules and Yolanda and you both, where they're talking about the negotiating on your way out. I want to make a few points about that.
Yes.
One, and I accidentally did this myself, and so I'm sharing it with you all. If you are planning to quit a job, or if you may end up rage quitting like I did, either way, try to stay until you're fully vested in your stock. Make sure that you're doing that. And then also, if you can look at your career and plan your exit at the beginning, right? If you have mentally decided that my career, I am planning this in 2 to 4 year chapters, then you plan your exit at the beginning, right? I need to exit this with this amount of stock. I need to exit with this amount of paid time off so that I can have a break in between jobs, so I can go sit and have me a drink and just stare in the space, whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
Try to plan your career so that you're planning your exits at the beginning. I just wanted to mention that just because I saw the negotiation part, negotiator exits in the comments.
And Kirsten, really quickly, I negotiated a sabbatical with one of my jobs. I negotiated 90 days off within my contract because I recognized that there would come a time when I would be burnt out and I'd need the time off. And I took it, yes. So if you can, do it.
We need some amens up in here. This is church today. This is church.
It makes sense because it's Sunday. We might as well go to church, right?
Look, and this is church. As a Jewish person, this is church I like because I can drink the whole time. Yeah.
How much time was this? An hour or 2 hours?
It was an hour. Our moderator said she can go maybe like 25 minutes more.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she has another event, so I don't want to hold her up. So we have like 20. Yeah, we have like 20 or so minutes left. So yeah, let's keep going a little bit longer, but I don't know. I don't want to keep our moderator from her other event.
Yeah,
sure.
Oh my goodness. Wow. This has been, well, I said initially we'd get to other sessions at the conference, but I think we're having such a great time here talking about our talks and things. But yeah, why don't we take a moment to touch upon, I heard the Career Village was really good. Did any of you have a chance to experience any of the villages or the CTF or anything?
No.
I did not. I was so stressed out about
I think we should have a moment to admit the stress to actually.
Oh my goodness.
Because I think a lot of people think that it's just natural to us and easy. And I'm crazy. Didn't I send you a message and I was like, why did I do this?
Yeah, Jules and I were messaging back and forth of why did we do this? Why did we agree to this? I was sending messages to Kirsten. I'm like, I'm so nervous. And she's like, girl, Kirsten's like, girl, I have to follow you. And I'm like, that's not helping.
I got about 8 panic text messages from Jules. All the way up to, what? I don't know. Why did I say this? I have to prepare too, Jewel.
And it's so funny because people like, I see you all the time. You're always speaking. I'm like, it doesn't mean it's easy. It just, I literally am no good to anybody before.
Yes.
And then right after, people are like, well, you didn't pick up my phone call. I don't want to talk. I just want to.
Thank you. Yeah. I needed an hour decompression time. And yeah, I was like on edge. I was just like, oh my God. And then like some of my coworkers were in on it. So they're sending me messages. I'm like, oh God, people I know were listening. And
I know. That's gonna freak you out when you're like, oh, you were on there. Okay. I should have been more scared. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I always tell people like, yeah, I have this process where I get like, I get crazy to the point where my husband's like, why do you keep doing this to yourself? And I'm like, but I love it. And it's because, yeah, the high, like the high afterwards is wonderful. And if we were at a real conference, I would have made a beeline to the bar and had a gin and tonic. Yes! But like, instead it was noon my time and I had to get back to work. So instead I was like, I'm like sitting here in my house being like, I need something to get rid of this nervous energy. But yeah, like in all, we love it and all, but yeah, the process. And I usually say to people, I'm a nervous wreck beforehand, but when it's showtime, I'm jazz hands and smiles.
Yeah.
And yeah, because when that live button goes on, I'm like, yeah, but again, speaking remotely is different than in person.
Mm-hmm.
I
feed off the energy of the audience and I didn't have that.
And there's only one who recorded. I recorded mine. I recorded mine because I couldn't predict when my children might walk in. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it because they're taking a nap. That's why I recorded. And so I was thankful to be able to do that. But I think there was a question. Do you want to take questions? Maybe we should take questions from them.
Yes, there was.
Okay.
Without the I would just say that for me it was harder because I definitely feed off of the energy. I have a joke in my talk that it's the E.E. Cummings joke that when I said that joke at DerbyCon, It caught me off guard because maybe this is me being a liberal arts major snob, but I didn't expect the DerbyCon audience to react as strongly as they did to that joke, because there was like this huge like burst of laughter. So that really like got me excited. I was like, wow, like you people got my stupid sense of humor. And it really bolstered me. So yeah, it definitely was an impediment. I did my best, but I prefer live audiences. And then the after part, I love to speak with people afterwards. I love to drink afterwards. So for me, it was an impediment. How about the rest of you ladies?
I would say for me, just given where I had to go to get the talk out, it didn't matter. Because I would say I almost wasn't speaking for the purpose of someone else. I think I was speaking for myself as well, which made it more powerful because I was communicating what I needed to connect with. And then I was sharing because I thought people identified, but not for the people. So it was, and I remember speaking at RSA earlier this year, and you definitely feed off the audience. But given all the situations we've been having, I just needed to have a like private church moment. And I think that's really what everybody experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I also feed off the live audience. I like to make eye contact. I like to like move around, and if I find someone who's just really like into it, I'm like, you're my person. I'm down. And that not having that, there was a little bit of a detriment for me there. But the positive was that I was able to I wrote out my entire talk. And I'm a person that likes to make jokes in my talks, and I didn't realize until I was writing it out that I was like, I'm writing pause for laughter, and I'm like, oh man. But my solution to that was I laughed at my own jokes. So if you were to go back and look at my talks, I'm like dying laughing because I think I'm hilarious.
And we didn't have to wear pants, right, ladies?
Yes. Wait. I was too excited. Too excited. No. That's okay.
No, I was fully dressed. I'm just
I think for me it was like not having to wear heels.
So
there's something about when I talk in person, I wear heels because it makes me feel like a super hero. So but this time I was sitting, and I think my superpowers came from the fact that it actually came out. So yeah.
So it looks like David has a question for us here.
Oh.
What are 3 things outside the norm candidates should negotiate? This is what Kirsten talked about. For me, I would say conference attendance. Because a lot of them cost money. Some of them are more expensive than others. I would or tuition reimbursement. If these aren't already a part of the company's package, but I would definitely say conferences to have. I think it's easier if you also name the conference. So if you just say like Las Vegas, like I want to guarantee that I can go to Hacker Summer Camp, fully funded. I'd say conferences is one thing. What other things can we tell David about to negotiate for?
So it depends on the organization you work for. A lot of times I find security vendors are more willing to take the risk on new entry-level candidates. So I would negotiate equity because legitimately you're going to be, especially if you're an early hire, you get in, they may not be able to compensate you in dollars, but they may be able to compensate you for how much the company makes at a later time. I think a lot of us miss that opportunity, so we can negotiate for equity. Sabbaticals are for like senior and above. I don't think at an entry level you should negotiate a sabbatical, but I do feel like if you are somebody who comes in knowing that you have something that may impact you, like mental health, physical health, you should definitely negotiate for the things like health insurance. And a lot of times there are health insurances that don't cover mental health. You should, because this industry is really, really high with burnout. The percentages for burnout are very high. So definitely negotiate for those kinds of things.
That's great advice.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Kirsten.
No, I was just going to say some companies are also paying retention bonuses. And so, we talked a lot about sign on bonuses, and I wanted to, I've been highlighting that a lot just because I know a lot of women don't know that they can even ask for that, even as recently as last week, just based on the feedback that I got from the talk. But some of them are also paying retention bonuses, right? Like the federal government, you can negotiate retention bonuses. It's actually on the OPM website. Also, Jules mentioned, asking for equity. If you can also make sure that, again, what I mentioned a little bit ago is you should be negotiating your exit at the beginning. And so realizing and understanding that every company doesn't offer the same benefits, whatever your specific goals are, you have to target those companies to help you get there. Because, for example, retail is not, they don't pay a lot and they don't offer bonuses and they don't offer a lot of things that, like you mentioned, the tech company would. Power utility companies have pensions where that's not common in most other industries. Actually, people they stopped offering pensions a long time ago. So it depends on your specific goals and doing your research to find the companies and the opportunities to help you reach those goals.
Yeah, I would echo that and add that so negotiation doesn't stop when you enter the company or when you exit the company. Always be negotiating. I'm happy to share and announce that I'm going to be writing a book, and one of the things that I've been talking with my company about and negotiating with is how do I actually carve off some time to be able to do that. And we had a full conversation about, okay, this is what it's going to take for me to do it. This is who's going to pick it up. This is who, I mean, they're helping me with research, all that stuff. You have, like, for whatever it is that you want to get done, always be negotiating. Don't let people just continue to foist work on you and you just take it and don't do anything with it, or not don't do anything with it, but just do it for free. How about that?
Yeah, I was going to echo what Yolanda said. This is actually from my library world job, but also just being good at what you do can also give you leverage.
Mhm.
So this is also one I want to stress is, you know, you also have to follow up a lot of these demands, with your work product. I
Mhm.
think I don't think this is super common, but I think there are some people you kind of come across some people who think they can just coast and still demand all this stuff. Oh, no, no.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah. So, and I get frustrated when I come across those individuals. I was like, no, you're falsely empowered. Like, you have to be able to back up what you did. So, my example from when I was a librarian, I did this very dramatic cost savings initiative when I was at the law firm library. And I was able to get a cash bonus at like a weird time of the year. It wasn't my review time. I had saved the firm so much money that they cut me a check at like an odd time of year to reward me for that. And it was a substantial bonus because I saved them millions of dollars. So I just wanted to add that, yes, like in case it wasn't apparent, like you need to put the work in, like you have to be good,
Mhm.
because being good at your job also gives you leverage to do fun things.
Yep.
When I was again I can really speak freely about my law firm library days. I apologize that I can't speak too freely about. I can speak somewhat freely about my SOC days, but again, like if you do a good job, you can do fun things. When I was at the law firm, I organized a March Madness watch party for the entire firm, and I got a budget to throw it because I was good at my job and they knew I would get my work done, but I also wanted to throw a March Madness party.
Yeah.
Fun.
So, working hard can give you benefits to do fun things at work too, and give you leverage for things. So I just want to throw that in there too, is that you need to put the work in. You can't
And
just
I mean,
cruise.
I started in my career, my overall career started in New York, in the magazine industry, and I was in advertising sales. So legitimately, the culture was work hard, play hard.
Hmm.
So you had to work your butt off, and then you'd attend these parties, and the next day you had to be at the office, regardless of how drunk, how messed up, how much of a hangover you had, because that was the only way they could demonstrate that if anything else would happen, you would show up.
Yeah.
So it was always about grit, resilience. People are constantly testing for that in different ways, but you always have to be able to demonstrate that regardless of how hard it becomes, you will show up, because when you do that consistently, and then you have a situation like I did one time where I literally, in 2017, I had a situation like personally where I just kind of just could not bear to go to work. They didn't attribute that to my personality because they'd seen me consistently show up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have to develop a personality where you don't assume people know that you are capable of what you do, right? So I don't, and I said this in my talk. I think a lot of people have become entitled to being respected as opposed to earning respect, and that doesn't do anybody any favors.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
So,
you have to earn
Seeing
it.
lots of entitlement on the timeline. My husband and I have been talking about how to broach the subject, and but we haven't figured out a way to do it yet where we would have. I know I don't have the bandwidth to deal with any pushback right now, but I know we are definitely seeing lots of entitlement on the timeline.
yeah,
They live in Chaddistan. Remember, I came up thanks to
oh yeah,
Kirsten.
you're
I
right.
came up with Chaddistan.
Well, but I'll tell you that it's not just Chads.
No,
It's legitimately
we are
black,
seeing from
black
our own
people.
community.
And because I am like in my company, we have apprentices. So I'm always willing to hire people who don't have the requisite experience so that they can get it on their resume and they can communicate it to others.
Mhm.
I've done it at least 2 or 3 times and have built wonderful analysts, right? So that they can go to entry level. But I have been on interviews where people are like, well, what's the motivation for using cybersecurity? Well, it makes a lot of money. You're kidding me, right?
Yeah.
It does make a lot of money, and that can be your motivation. But what else is motivating you? Because it's so hard out here.
That's the right answer for a sales job. Money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Money is great. But like legitimately, I've also heard, oh, my friend thought that I'd be smart enough to get in. So I've also been on the receiving end of just like, I can't validate and stand up for everybody. Like if you're not, I can't put my name on the line for you. So you've got to do the work, and then I'm willing to walk you in because I've developed the relationships. But if I have a series of people who don't meet the standard, then people are not going to rely on me to bring quality talent. So we would be destroying the legacy because you didn't come prepared. I can't do that. I'm sorry.
The true story, when I had my interview for my SOC job, remember I came from library world. I had no tech experience. And I worked hard to give examples of my transferable skills, which I talk about a lot in different talks. My interview was the same day as the WannaCry incident. So I remember driving to the interview and thinking to myself, if they're a good interviewer, they're going to ask me a question about how to remediate WannaCry.
Yep.
So I practiced in my head now I didn't have a lot of tech experience, remember. So I practiced in my head with my transferable skills driving to the interview. And sure enough, one of the last questions was, so this thing is blowing up right now. How would you remediate it? I kid you not, I am not exaggerating. The very first example I gave of remediation, the big boss turned to his subordinate and said, we never thought of that. Because I came from this from a different point of view, a liberal arts, library science background, people-centric background. They never even thought of the people-centric side of it. So because I named that in my interview, they were like, okay, you need to get on that. We didn't even think of that. And I got the job. Because I was able to communicate. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Remember where you guys were during WannaCry? I was actually during WannaCry going up for an opportunity. I was in an office in Virginia, and legitimately I was having conversation about how great we were, and they were like pulling their hair out. We gotta go. It's something's happening in our offices, and so it's WannaCry is one of those moments in cyber that I remember just being like, whoa, like what we do here matters because we're offering a solution to want to cry, and they'd been putting us off for months. So.
Yeah, we wound up like wrapping up my interview a little quickly because then because it was literally like happening as we were talking, and with the time difference and everything, and it was it was a UK based company. So
Yep.
the phone started going off more and more. So yeah, we kind of quickly ended. But yeah, I anticipated that question, and I had answers, and I had answers from my experience that they hadn't encountered before. And yeah, sure enough, they were like, we never thought of that. And
Yep.
And that happened the whole time. The 2 years I was in the SOC, I always thought of angles that the tech people never thought of because I had this different background.
Yeah. I want to touch on two things that I see in the comments. One is about intellectual property and the other about working from home.
Mm-hmm.
When I rage quit my job over the summer, even though I gave a 2.5 week notice, they cut my access off the same day. And so make sure that any work, and I think it'll be easier now because we're all in quarantine, but I know prior to quarantine, I was traveling a lot, and often my work, my volunteer work in the community, for example, it overlapped with my job, and I wasn't always traveling with two different laptops. So make sure that you have an external copy of any work that you're doing. If it's research that overlaps, whatever it is, have that going somewhere externally or saved somewhere externally. And on the work from home piece of it, make sure that if that is what you need to support your family, then you need to negotiate that. When I was trying to decide where I would go this summer, because I had lots of opportunities presented to me, but I had to narrow it down to what do I need for my family. And what I ultimately needed was to be here at home working. And that's what drove my decision. My entire decision-making process was I have to be 100% remote because I don't know if my children are going back to school. And as it turns out, none of them can go back to school. So remember, yes, somebody's talking about they were so judgmental. Yes, people are ugly and judgmental, but I still, even the parts where I know I'll be attacked, I talk about those things online anyway, because it's better for me to share my negative experience to help someone else than to keep it to myself out of fear of judgment. But asking for working from home, if that's what you need for your family or just for your mental health. I know for a lot of Black people, our threat model is that we are safer at home. We don't have the microaggressions. We don't have to worry about, workplace shootings, especially with all the crazy that's happening. There's just a lot of things for us it's safer for us to work from home. So if that is what you need, find those companies that will support 100% work from home. And then again, just because of COVID, I think a lot of companies where they had not been open to it in the past, they are letting people work from home now.
Awesome. We are butting up against our cutoff time here. So I just want to say I thank you all for being here today. I don't want to make Kirsten cry, but I really wanted to do this. I wanted to give a toast to the late Chadwick Boseman. So I know, I'm sorry. Well, I was going to do this when we first started, but when you said how upset you were, but I really, honestly, sincerely, I want to take a moment to raise a glass. Black Panther is one of my favorite films. Everyone, please, colorectal health is very important. Please get checked. Black Americans are more at risk for it. So please get checked. I want everybody to be healthy and happy. And so here, cheers. Sorry, I'm going on and on. I am almost finished my bottle of champagne, by the way. So, so cheers.
Thank you.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever. And to honor his legacy and all the people that came before us, I do want to encourage all of you all to vote. Go out.
Yes.
Have to get this asshole out of office. If I never get on another stage again, I am okay. We have to get this guy out of office.
Yes.
Vote. Get your families to vote. You can volunteer to do phone banking. That's like those things that are within our control. We have to do that. So if you can get your family to vote, Black women, we have a plan. We got our shit together. Yep. I'm gonna need y'all to work on the 53% so we can get this guy out of office. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna end.
I cheers to that as well. Let's all vote. We're let's all be family. And I love you, ladies. This is
Love
wonderful.
you. This was so great.
This is great. Thank you
This
guys
is
so
great.
much.
Thank
So
you.
yeah. So
One
and I want to
last
thank Circuit Swan. Oh, I'm
one
sorry. Go
last
ahead,
thing.
Yolanda.
So if there were any questions that you didn't get to
Oh
ask,
yeah.
wanted us to ask, and we didn't get to it this time, please reach out to us on our
Mm-hmm.
Twitter call signs there. I know I saw a question come up about the board. Happy to talk more about how you
Mm-hmm.
get the board seat. But thank you all for
I
coming.
apologize we didn't get to the board question, but yeah, we needed to start to wrap this up. And big
Well,
shout out to Nicole Circuit Swan for being
Yes.
our moderator. Thank you.
And the Diana Initiative.
Yes.
Thank you to the Diana Initiative for having us as keynote speakers. And yep, we need to get going. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, ladies, and cheers. Love you all. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.